Before I get into the video, first I would like to remind you that most of you who are watching are not actually subscribed to the channel, so I would really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Continuing September 2nd spoilers for Innistrad Midnight Hunt, we have this cool card here, Jidar Ghoul, Color of Nephalia. 2-mana legendary human wizard, a 1/1. At the beginning of your end step, if you control no creatures with Decayed, you create a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed. So Decayed is a brand new keyword here. It can't block, and when it attacks, you sacrifice it at the end of combat, which I think is pretty cool. It adds some depth to zombies, whereas before it's just like any other token. But here it makes sense. They can only do so much before they break down and decompose. And then we have another flip card here, Beloved Beggar, that flips into Generous Soul. So it starts out as a 2-mana human peasant, a 0/4 with a disturb ability that costs 6 mana. You may cast this card from your graveyard transformed for its disturb cost. And when you do have it transformed, it is a flying vigilant 4/4 spirit. If Generous Soul would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. And then we get some new non-basic lands here. We get Rockfall Vale, Shipwreck Marsh, Haunted Ridge, Deserted Beach, and Overgrown Farmland. All of these, when they enter the battlefield, they enter tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. So this is really a continuation of another land cycle. I forget exactly when, but these are really good for Commander because it's not so much about the speed in Commander, especially if you're playing more casual Commander. I think they're great. I think they belong in a lot of decks, and I can't wait to test them out. Then it would seem we finally get a Werewolf Commander that actually interacts with other werewolves. Here we have Tovolar, Dire Overlord, a 3-mana red and green legendary human werewolf. Whenever a wolf or a werewolf you control deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more wolves and or werewolves, it becomes night. Then transform any number of human werewolves you control. And then when it's nighttime, you get Tovolar, the Midnight Scourge. Whenever a wolf or a werewolf you control deals combat damage to a player, you also get to draw a card with this side, and has a really good activated ability of X, red, and green. Target wolf or werewolf you control gets +X power and gains trample until end of turn. And Daybound and Nightbound is just a keyword kind of summing up everything, the requirements in order to turn it from day to night. But that activated ability is great, especially in a red and green deck. You want to deal a lot of damage, and you want to be able to trample over other creatures. Then we get the return of Sagarta, Champion of Light. 4 mana, green and white, legendary angel with flying and trample. Humans you control get +1/+1, and a Coven ability. Whenever Sagarta attacks, if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a human creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So while she's not a human herself, just more human tribal support, as I would expect to see even more of in that Commander deck. The Coven ability is also going to be more +1/+1 counter support for human tribal too. And then we have the card Secrets of the Key. Investigate. If this spell was cast from a graveyard, investigate twice instead, and a flashback cost of 4. And then we have Brutal Cathar that flips into Moonrage Brute. When this creature enters the battlefield or transforms into Brutal Cathar, exile target creature an opponent controls until this creature leaves the battlefield. And Moonrage Brute has First Strike and Ward of 3 life, so your opponents have to pay 3 life to target it. And then we have Tavern Ruffian, just has Daybound, a 2/5, flips into Tavern Smasher, a 6/5. And then we have Baithook Angler, has the Disturb ability of 2 mana. You may cast this card from your graveyard transformed for its Disturb cost. Flips into Hookhaunt Drifter, flying. If Hookhaunt Drifter would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Then we have Candle Trap. The enchanted creature has Defender, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt by enchanted creature. Has Coven, a 3 mana, sacrifice Candle Trap, exile enchanted creature. Activate only if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers. Then we have Candlelit Cavalry. Has a Coven ability at the beginning of combat on your turn. If you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, Candlelit Cavalry gains trample until end of turn. Might of the Old Ways, target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Coven, if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, you draw a card. Then we have Dawnheart Rejuvenator, Human Warlock. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life, and it taps to add 1 mana of any color. We have Arrogant Outlaw, Vampire Noble. Whenever Arrogant Outlaw enters the battlefield, if an opponent lost life this turn, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Brimstone Vandal, a red devil with menace. If it's neither day nor night, it becomes day as Brimstone Vandal enters the battlefield. Whenever day becomes night or night becomes day, Brimstone Vandal deals 1 damage to each opponent, so that's really cool. Storm Rider Spirit is a flash flying spirit, just a 3/3. Defenestrate is a 3-mana black instant, destroy target creature without flying. So we went from Murder being a card in Eldritch Moon to now it's just even harder to get rid of a creature. That's pretty interesting. I never really thought Murder was that powerful. And then we have Light Up the Night, X in a red. Light Up the Night deals X damage to any target. It deals X plus 1 damage instead if that target is a creature or a planeswalker. And a flashback cost of 4 mana. Remove X loyalty counters from among planeswalkers you control. If you cast a spell this way, X can't be 0. So in order to really flash it back, you need to have a planeswalker out there. That's a bit of a bummer because that would be really cool if we had a way to flash back an X-costed spell that would actually be pretty viable in a flashback focused deck. We have Famished Foragers, a 4-mana red vampire. When it enters the battlefield, if an opponent lost life this turn, we add 3 red. Has an ability of 3 mana and discard a card to draw a card.